it's important to enjoy life and finding an opportunity to balance that more. Imagine it like a fulcrum or, the scales of justice, and you're tipping the scales one way with defense, but then got to have the offense too. And also just to be able to enjoy your time. Because if you're aggressively saving and not doing any fun activities or really limiting the fun or the discretionary income that you spend, it makes it difficult because nothing in life is guaranteed.
What does it mean to live a meaningful inner and outer life? And how do our personal finances fit in that? We tackle those questions and others in the School of Financial Freedom podcast. We talk about the role of money in our personal growth and spiritual liberation, the concrete math of budgeting and saving and investing, and how all this relates to the life you are meant to lead. Each episode is an interview with a former student of my online course, Financial Freedom 1, where they explain their favorite lesson and years later, what financial, behavioral, and spiritual impact it had on them. I'm Douglas Soy, founder of School of Financial Freedom, and your host. Glad you're here. So today we're going to be talking with Barbara about lesson 3.7, which is your financial mindset is your financial destiny. Attitudes and behaviors of the Millionaire Next Door. I met Barbara about 5 years ago after doing a presentation at this organization called Starting Block, which we were both part of. And it's super great to talk to Barbara 5 years later and find out where she is and how the course has helped her make decisions around her financial life and her personal life with her family.
Hi, my name is Barbara, and you're listening to the School of Financial Freedom podcast.
So welcome, Barbara. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Douglas. It's great to be here. My name is Barbara, and I am originally from Southern California and live in Chicago. Like you said, I took School of Financial Freedom in 2019 after hearing your pitch for this course. And this lesson in particular about the Millionaire Next Door and using great offense and great defense to grow your assets and income and prepare for a financially free life really spoke to me. At the time I took the course, I was interested in a job transition and really interested in changing my life so that I wouldn't feel as worried or anxious about money. Getting these lessons in Discourse, the program we were using, and having discussions about really important topics about personal finance dramatically changed my life over these last 5 years.
Great. Well, tell us about the lesson.
This lesson in particular was really interesting to me because I often thought about the people in my community and who is a millionaire next door and how do people save and spend in ways that prepare them for the future? Because often we hear about people not even having $400 saved to take care of an emergency, much less retirement, apart from Social Security that most people hope to have in some way, shape, or form in the future. And I often think about my financial security, not only because I grew up in a larger family, I'm one of 5 children, but also because I have a child of my own. And I think about the next generation and how can I play great offense and defense so that my daughter doesn't have to worry about money, doesn't have to think about whether she can go to a certain college because she can't afford it. These things are really important to me, and the lessons I learned here and thinking about how to accumulate wealth in a smart way and an efficient way really made all the difference in my life.
Yeah, so Millionaire Next Door is a pretty well-known book, it's a nationwide study of the 3.5 million households that have at least $1 million worth of assets. So tell us about the book.
Well, I didn't read the book. I read the lesson and I looked into the concepts behind it because something that struck me was how you don't have to be a lawyer or a doctor to be a millionaire next door. You can have any job, really. And it's not about the salary, although having a higher salary is beneficial. It's really about how you save and invest that money and keep from spending so that you can save and invest more. And that accumulates over time and at a much higher rate depending on how old you are when you start that investment. That struck me because I had had a job out of law school where it was a high income job, and I was able to save for my retirement at a younger age. And then when I left that higher income job to take a lower one and then go to graduate school, I had some comfort knowing that I had saved, but then I needed to continue to save because that only goes so far.
Yeah, the study shows that 80% of millionaire households are actually first generation wealthy, right? Like they didn't inherit the wealth. Um, and some significant percentage of them are actually in blue collar jobs.
It's incredible because it again debunks this theory that you have to have a certain job or a certain title or a certain level of education, even. And that's something that people are questioning today. How much are you willing to spend on education? I will say that I do have a law degree and a policy degree, so I chose that, but that was an intentional choice. That was something I wanted to do for myself. But the truth is, how you choose to spend your money and the offense in terms of finding a career or a business or multiple income streams to help grow that money is what is really important in terms of financial freedom.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember in my high school economics class, we just did this comparison. If like you didn't go to college and instead you spent those 4 years living at home and learning a trade, it comes out almost the same as actually having a college degree. And so I am pro learning a trade for any high school kid. Yeah, I mean, at this point with cost of college education, like not going to college, interestingly enough, is like, a $500,000 decision, and $500,000 saved at age 20 years old is essentially a retirement by the time you hit age 60.
Absolutely. And another consideration that sometimes people don't think about is the expenses that come with the education or the educational path, the job path that you choose. For example, if you go to law school and become an attorney, depending on where you work, you have to commute, you have to buy the suits and go to court and all these things that come with being an attorney. I remember in one of my first legal jobs that I had a lot of shoes, and I just bought these shoes because I thought that's what I needed to show up for the job. And then years later, when I gave away a lot of these shoes because I didn't wear them, I just realized how unnecessary it was to feel like I had to accumulate shoes and purses and jackets and all sorts of clothing and accessories to feel that I needed to be part of that community. And that comes with many jobs, but it's something that I've definitely given a lot of thought to now in terms of figuring out what to spend and what to save.
Any other big lessons from Millionaire Next Door?
One of the biggest lessons to me is more of the attitude that these people had. It's not necessary to flaunt one's wealth. In fact, it's, in my view, best not to. It's best to think about when that account is growing. Okay, that's good. I'm thinking about it for the future. And then setting it and forgetting it and just focusing on, okay, what do I need for now once you've set aside that money and played good offense? I've played sports most of my life and I loved offense as a soccer player and just being out in the field. But it was later on that I realized how important defense was. And I was even listening to a conversation a few days ago about how important it is to consider defense. And you can tell that these people who maybe not anything, they may not be thinking of all the things that someone else might be thinking of in terms of a flashy car or expensive jewelry or anything like that, but their mindset is focused on the task at hand and making sure that they can secure their financial freedom as well as the financial freedom of future generations and their family.
Explain this concept of great offense and great defense.
The way I view it is in terms of money, right? There's wealth accumulation that comes from a lot of ways. And to your point about the Millionaire Next Door, there are people who did not inherit money. They were not coming from a situation where a family member could gift them large sums of cash. Instead, they had to earn this money through a job, a trade, a profession, and accumulate it over time. So playing great offense is a lot of it is about finding ways to accumulate what you need to start saving and investing it. So before you can save and invest, you have to get and accumulate. And for me personally, that meant getting that educational background and pursuing the law degree, for example, and getting a legal job as an attorney. But then playing great defense is about taking that money and figuring out how to invest it and save it wisely, because it's easy to accumulate money and spend it right away. A lot of people do it. There's spur of the moment situations and impulses and, oh, I have this $500. I'm just going to buy this purse, or I'm going to go to this nice show or whatever. But then it's much harder and much more disciplined to take that money and not even look at it and just automatically store it away in a fund or max out your retirement savings accounts, all the mechanisms you use to save. So playing great defense can enable you to feel more comfortable and enjoy life well beyond the time of retirement, whenever that may be. And that may be sooner if there's a combination of great offense and defense.
Well, it's interesting, Barbara, because both of us are I'm a former lawyer, you're still a lawyer, but it's the trap for being a lawyer is that, you make really good income, you have great offense, but then you don't actually pay any attention to defense. I know a lot of people who are like, if I work this hard, I have to be able to spend money, or the working that hard is not worth it.
Or they earned it. They earned it and they're entitled to it. I spent all that time in law school. I made this money. I got to spend it. I deserve it. And that may be true, but there's ways to do that are disciplined. And that's really something I learned over time. I've never been a big spender, but there were times in the past where I definitely spent more money than was necessary. Like I mentioned with the shoes and other things and trips and just buying things on a whim. I really don't do that at all now. I have much more disciplined approaches to spending.
It's so funny. I remember one of my classmates, like 4 years out, she was a fourth year associate, and she was super angry. And she said, "I can't believe I'm still shopping at Pottery Barn." Right? Like, if you're going to work this hard and you gain this much education, you deserve more in life than just the petit bourgeois furniture that you can get at the store.
Yeah, the idea of buying your time back is something that I started to internalize, especially after taking School of Financial Freedom. The idea of the book, Your Money or Your Life, and thinking about the life energy and that you are spending these hours working, and what is your output for that? You get money, you get satisfaction, but you get money. And what do you do with that money? Hopefully, as you accumulate more, you're buying that time back, or you're not having to spend as much time. And that's the ideal, when you can do what you want to and not have to worry so much about that money coming in, knowing that you have a great plan for the money you've already invested and can invest further, but it's not something you must do in the same way. That's what I'm working toward.
Yeah, it's interesting because on the other side of it, there are a lot of people who play great defense, but they have not done anything about playing any offense.
Yeah, I worry about that as well, Douglas, because on the one hand, that is good and very important, and something that a lot of people, from my perspective in the FIRE movement, had done, really aggressively save 50% of income, something like 60%. That is laudable in some ways. It's just at the same time, it's important to enjoy life and finding an opportunity to balance that more. Imagine it like a fulcrum or, the scales of justice, and you're tipping the scales one way with defense, but then got to have the offense too. And also just to be able to enjoy your time. Because if you're aggressively saving and not doing any fun activities or really limiting the fun or the discretionary income that you spend, it makes it difficult because nothing in life is guaranteed. And so it's a balance. It's finding that equilibrium, but it's not the same for everybody. And it's up to all of us to determine that. And that's why we have to go through our numbers. And that's something that I think about a lot in terms of how you take care of yourself by paying yourself first and having that set aside and knowing that's going to be there, rather than, oh, let me look at all my expenses. And then by the time that's done, oh, wait, what do I have left? Oh, okay, maybe I should save that. Better to do it the other way.
Yeah, explain this concept of pay yourself first.
Well, the simplest way I can explain it is with a W 2 situation, and it's different for people who are self employed, right? But if you know what you're getting every 2 weeks or every month, in my case, in one recent role, I've been paid monthly, you know what's coming in, and you already can allocate that amount before you even get the direct deposit. You know that that amount pre-tax, for example, is going to your retirement account or accounts or HSA or whatever other mechanism you have. Knowing that, you can be confident that that's there, and you've chosen that amount that they will withhold, and then the rest will go, whether you have auto pay or other mechanisms, will go to the things that you need to pay for. But paying yourself first guarantees, at least for that paycheck, that your amount that you've decided will go to your savings and your investments. That's there.
I love that. I love the idea that basically pay yourself first is just a withholding tax for your future self.
Pretty much you're making that deposit, you're making that pre-deposit, I guess, into your future well-being and your future self.
Yeah, I mean, I have always said that, personal finance, it's just your relationship with the future, right? There's no not spending. The only question is, are you spending now or are you going to spend in the future? And, there is some point in the future where you're not going to want to work or not going to be able to work, right? And where's the income coming for that person? And the only answer is the income's coming from present you.
Yeah, because we can't depend on outside sources. We can't guarantee, because nothing in life is certain, that governmental checks will be coming. There's no certainty until you see the money in your account. And for me, it made me think a lot about how to invest. So we haven't gone into that. I know this isn't an investment podcast, but it's important for people to educate themselves on that. And there's something in this lesson where you talk about spending twice as much time per month or many hours per month on your money to be a prodigious accumulator of wealth, or PAW, versus those who are under accumulators of wealth, UAWs. And that's important, being educated about that offense. Because you can run an offense, but if it's not scoring enough points, then you're not going to be prepared in the future. Now, I mean, I love sports. I grew up playing sports, and it's just really important to think about that and do it in a way that makes sense, rather than just blindly following what someone told you or what you've heard about or read about somewhere. Just really educating. And that's something I'm still doing. I'm not perfect, and I have a lot of room for growth there. There's so much to read about investing, but it's worth it. It's really worth it to make sure you're playing an effective offense.
And that's the interesting thing, right? Like, a lot of people who are these prodigious accumulators of wealth, yeah, they're spending 8 hours. The statistic is they spend 8 hours a month on their investments versus people who don't, who spend less than 4 hours a month on their investments. There is there's a direct correlation. I won't say causation, but there's a direct correlation between how much money or how much time you spend thinking about managing your investments and how well they do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think about my father as an example of someone who's been retired for a while. He spends a lot of time reviewing his investments and not relying on a financial advisor, by the way, for all of it, making sure he takes the time to see how things are going, watching the markets. And that's not something we all have to do every day. That's not what I'm suggesting, but making sure we put in the time that we feel is enough. Or if we don't think it's enough, how can we find ways to do it? How can we work with people? So, for example, I created a personal finance group for women in my neighborhood a few years ago after completing School of Financial Freedom 1 and 2. And it was so wonderful to talk to other people about this topic, because it's not something I felt I could handle on my own. And it's important to know when to ask for help about how do you make these choices, and not just individual picks. It's more about the broad philosophy and what type of investing are you going to do? How aggressive are you going to be? And it's really helpful to do it with other people. I really enjoyed that aspect of this course also, that we were in this situation this learning environment where we could bounce ideas off one another. It was so helpful at a time when I was relearning or learning these things for the first time.
Well, it's interesting because for most people, talking about money is a taboo. And I'm amazed that you're able to create, a little group of people that were willing to talk about money and investing together.
It was amazing for me as well, because initially I wasn't sure if anyone would respond. I posted in a neighborhood listserv, and I don't remember at the time if I said for women. I don't remember, but it ended up being women in the group. But it was really a great way to bring people together who didn't necessarily know much about the topic or knew very little, and have this repeat monthly conversation and be vulnerable with each other about, okay, here's how things are going. Here's what I need to do. Oh, I didn't do that yet. And having that support, because that's key, having support about this. Everyone has to deal with money. It's not like one person has only a little bit and the other person has a lot. Everyone in some way every month has to deal with it. There's bills to be paid, there's taxes, there's all these other things every month, every year. And so it's something we can all relate to. But to your point, talking about it is harder. And so finding a group of people who can do that, it's gold. It's great. And I really enjoyed that time when I could spend time talking with people about it and just share some of my concerns. Because you can't always do that with family and friends.
Amazing. It reminds me of that phrase that culture beats strategy every day of the week, right? Like, because we don't talk about money and we don't talk about investing, and we have a culture of pretending it doesn't exist. In fact, our culture of consumerism is based on the fact that we don't need to save money for the future. And you're able to flip it. And yeah, there is that phrase that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I love the idea that you created community.
Absolutely.
So you have an interesting family situation coming up right now. You're moving. Tell us a little bit about that and how it applies to the lesson.
Yes, in thinking about this course and this lesson in particular, which I took 5 years ago, and now thinking about what I'm about to do, which is move to another city, another state, lower cost city, I'm excited about the opportunity because, one, I have my education, which no one can ever take. So I have that credential. I do owe some student loans, so I'm still thinking about how to manage that situation before the loans can hopefully be forgiven through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. But I'm thinking about how I can take that delta, the cost difference, and what can I do with that? Naturally, the first thing is the offense, right? Well, if I have less, well, it's both. Because if I spend less, I have more to save and invest. But maybe what if I could earn more? And what if I could do things differently because I have lower expenses? Often cost of living, at least in my case, has really significantly impacted what I felt I could do. So to give an example, I was doing a grad program, and then after that program, I really wanted to work in a certain area. And so I took a lower paying job that really was difficult on me in terms of finding ways to pay for my expenses and save. And that paying yourself first concept was very difficult because I didn't have that much to save for retirement. And I thought, this isn't good. This is not going to be good in the long run for me. Luckily, after a few years, I found a higher paying position, and that really set me up well. It actually happened not long after I took School of Financial Freedom. So I don't know if it was serendipitous or what, but learning these skills and the importance of paying myself first, and then having a position that I had a salary that was much better for saving and for paying myself first. It transformed my life because I was able to take a monthly accounting and I could see the money because it was a monthly check, and I could see how much I was spending, and I paid myself first. So I knew every month, okay, here's what I have and here's what I can do. And I updated my spending patterns that way.
Well, it's interesting because one of the things I often advise people is if you can hold the line on your spending right now as your career advances, all that extra compensation that you're getting as your career advances can just be additional fuel for your savings rate. And so it's the habits that we're talking about, right? Like if you're able to live on that same budget that you had when you had a lower income, without quote expanding quote your standard of living because you're making more money, you're going to accelerate your path to financial independence really quickly.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm thinking about now. I'm in no way thinking about increasing my expenses, although there is something that comes with moving to a different city in a different state. For example, where I live now, there's a lot of public transit options, there's high walkability, and it's easier to get around without a car. And where I'm moving, that isn't the case. And so there will be a change in consumption for me. And I wish it weren't that case or wasn't that way, but it's something I'm going to have to adjust to. But the good news is that we can calculate this. We can figure out how much gas costs, how much maintenance. We can make adjustments and we can plan it out. I'm a big planner. Like I've been thinking about this change for a while since I realized I'd be moving and how it's going to impact my spending. And some might think, oh, well, you have to make more money then. It's like, no, let's think about the delta. Think about how much you're saving, cost of living, and then what other expenses. But it takes discipline. Like this lesson is about discipline. And it's about having good habits that you consistently do. That's the key to habits, making sure you form one and that you keep going. Even I will tell you, after taking this course for the last 5 years, I've had this monthly accounting. And I check it more than once a month because there's credit card statements and those have a certain due date. And so I say, okay, well, here's the date for that. And then I compare it against what I'm going to be bringing in, which I already know because it's monthly. And so it's all of it. This is something people can figure out. And it takes time, but once you get a system, it can work for you.
In my head, I feel like there's an issue of money scripts here, right? Like some people, if they're money avoidant, don't want to make a lot of income. And some people who, either worship money or have money status, they have a hard time playing good defense. What are your money scripts?
For a while, I didn't talk about money. It wasn't something I grew up discussing, except the importance of saving and not spending. Really more not spending and withholding from spending. So part of my life has actually been trying to find ways to spend money that reflect my values versus what society expects me to spend money on. Growing up, I would often think, oh, well, that's too expensive, so I'll never get that. And then when I had a little bit more in my first legal job, I thought, oh, I can get it now. But now I'm older and I think, well, I can get it, but I don't need it. And I've evolved in my thinking. And it's not that I deprive myself at all. I find that I do many things that I enjoy, like travel, and I'll buy a book here and there. I'll go and see experiences over things. That's one of the things that's changed. So in my money scripts as a kid, thinking about, well, I can't afford this, I can't afford that. And then getting older and thinking, well, I can, but I don't have to. And now thinking, well, I want to do this because it reflects the values and I've saved. And I don't have to feel bad or guilty about making that purchase or investing in something, even taking a course or doing something that will help make my life better. There's a reason I'm doing it. It's intentional.
Yeah, I think, aligning your money with your values is the number one principle in financial freedom. Like, Vicki Robin always says that, the first step towards financial independence is liberating your mind. Well, that's what you're talking about, right? Like, I don't have to believe what society tells me is the important thing to do, right? I actually get to choose my own values and live by them. And by extension, my money is going to do the same thing.
Absolutely. And some societal norms can affect people's spending. So, for example, being a woman in the legal profession, being a professional, I used to think that there was a certain way I had to present myself. And I still believe in being professional, no question. It's just I don't have to do what I thought I had to do in the past. No one's requiring me to dress or act a certain way. I should live by what I believe. And that doesn't mean I don't do what I need to do to prepare for a job or an event or whatever it is, but I don't have those scripts running through my mind about being a professional and having taken this route as a professional. It's really liberating to feel that I can do what I need to do on my terms and through my values versus what others ascribe to me.
Yeah, you're talking about agency and control. right? And that's the ultimate thing that we want out of our lives and our finances. I'm curious, you took this course, your husband didn't. Talk about sort of being in a relationship and having to budget together.
Definitely something to think about depending on where one's goals are and whether it's individual goals or shared goals, family goals. I often think about why people have different spending patterns or different savings, and a lot of it does come down to money scripts. My spouse is very good at not spending money, just really always has been, always will be, wears clothes till it can't be worn anymore, shoes, and just doesn't have too much of anything in particular. And that really disciplined lack of spending, I guess saving, right, conversely, and investing mentality has been very beneficial to him. He also does read a lot about investing. While I took this course because as a lifelong learner, I really love being in learning environments where I can interact with other people. Like I mentioned, the community piece with the personal finance group. My husband just listens to podcasts, reads books, watches Bloomberg, other financial CNBC programs, and learns that way. And what's important is taking the lessons we learn and making decisions that will help our family. Because it's not just about me, it's about our family and our child. And that's something that, as long as we're on the same page, we have X amount we're saving, we have these goals, this will help us and help our child. That's all that matters. So I'm glad I took the course, and I encourage people to take it because it's a great way, an organized way to think about these important topics and set up a plan for your future. Other people may choose other ways to learn these topics, but the point is it's important to learn about these topics. You can't just one day wake up and know about it. You have to read it and learn and listen and understand because it's not intuitive.
And at the same time, I think there's another important part of it is the two of you are values aligned. Like, you know what's the most important thing. It's like your family and it's your child, right? And knowing what is the most important thing to you creates order for everything else.
Absolutely. Yes. The fact that we both value education, and in doing so, we're responsible about our finances, knowing that we were very fortunate to have that education, and that comes with a lot of responsibility in terms of managing the finances. And both of us have owed student loans for several years now, finding a way to manage that situation, but also playing good offense and finding work that's meaningful and also can help us achieve our goals has been very important to both of us, as well as having good defense and making sure our spending is in line with our values, but doesn't go too far afield or impact our future goals or the goals for our family.
I'm curious, one of the parts of the lesson is this idea that our emotional and mental limits will limit us far before the world will. Like we'll run up against ourselves far before the world will stop us. Have you found any limits, either in mental or emotional, that you had to break through?
I'm still working through one of the limits in terms of income and the ability to grow one's money and to play that great offense. At times, I feel that with my skills and experience, I could be earning a lot more, that I could have a higher income, or perhaps I could build a business. I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and similar books about entrepreneurship and really working for oneself. And I thought, that could be interesting. That's something that could really skyrocket my income potential. For whatever reason, I haven't chosen that path, and maybe I will in the future. That's been hard for me to break through in terms of thinking beyond the W-2, just having a stable income where I feel like it's good enough. The concept of la gomme really spoke to me because I felt, well, I don't need more. I have enough. At the same time, when you're thinking about financial freedom and goals, there are ways to do it where you could have higher income for a period of time. And it really sets you up, and you set your future self up for really whatever they need. And so that's something that I'm working through still, just trying to figure out how can I best contribute to our world and living by my values, but also setting my future self up for a great retirement or post-working life, whatever that is. and I want to live a long time. And so healthcare and being healthy is also something I really think a lot about in terms of the values-based saving, investing, and earning. I want to be able to enjoy my life 30 years from now, 50 years from now, hopefully. And that's something that I think about a lot when it comes to higher income positions, because some of them require a lot of time working. And that makes sense. I'm just not sure it's for me. So I think about it a lot.
Well, so do you have, when you look at your numbers, how close are you to crossing over?
Right now, it's hard for me. I used to say it was going to be 50, and I'm almost 40. So you'd think, oh, wow, 10 years. Okay. I'm pushing it a little back to 55 only because I want to have really a good cushion for those final years. And what I mean by final years is just assuming, hopefully, if all goes well, I live to be 90. I really want to be able to enjoy those years as much as possible and not think, well, I've pretty much spent down everything, so I can't go on this international trip, or I can't go to this show or whatever because I've run low. I want to make sure that I have all that I need. And the good news is that having saved earlier in my life and seeing that grow and continuing to save and invest, I feel good about it, but I wanted to push it out 5 more years. So I feel like 15, but I'm the kind of person, Douglas, I'm going to keep working. I mean, I'm going to keep doing things. I don't need to just put a halt to paid work. I just want to contribute. I want to contribute to society. I'm in law. I'm interested in policy, interested in our world. And being in a position to do that, if I have to work a little bit longer in a traditional paid employment situation, I'm okay with that. But I still want to contribute, just maybe in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is just margin of safety, right? And if you feel like working five extra years gives you margin of safety that you're comfortable with, absolutely, right? Everyone's risk profile is different.
Absolutely. Yeah. A family member had a birthday recently, and someone said, well, what's your wish? And they joked about the lottery. I know a lot of people who play the lottery, and I know a lot of people who like going to Las Vegas and having a good time. It's just, for me, it's just the slow and steady wins the race. The Millionaire Next Door, you just keep at it. And sure, anyone would love to get a windfall. Who wouldn't want that? It's just the likelihood of it happening is pretty much zero. And so for me, I just want to focus on the future and knowing what I can control and having a plan. It's worked really well for me in these last 5 years. I really woke up when I took this course and thought, wow, I never thought about spending in this way. I'd never thought about playing the offense that I need to play. I just thought, oh, well, I just need enough money, but there's more to it than that, and being disciplined about it.
Yeah, and entrepreneurship, even though it may have great income potential, there's an element of risk to it, and you may not want to do that until you feel more safe.
Absolutely, Douglas. Yeah, I am very risk averse, and that's probably why I went to law school. It's just I've seen what works, and that's the path I want to take. The challenge with that is you're missing out, right? What if I worked for myself? What if I built a business? What could I do with it? The potential seems limitless. At the same time, I know what I know. And at this point in my life, I just want to keep staying the course. Staying the course, but doing work that's meaningful. That's the key. That's really important to me.
Well, the great thing is, no one I know who has crossed over into financial independence, retiring early, has actually stopped working. Like, we say in the course, you just get to work with more honesty and creativity than you ever have. And so I imagine with you, like, once you cross over, that's probably when you'll start your business, right? Like when you have the ability to take risks in ways that you didn't feel comfortable before. And that's when you're going to like grow in ways that you can imagine, intellectually and emotionally.
You're right about that. And during the pandemic, I did think about this concept of having my own law firm, I guess it was at the time, or law practice. And I talked to people who did it. It takes a lot of planning. And now that I know or have this path, I can start planning. And one dream that I used to have, we'll see if I have it in the future, was to own a restaurant. I've spent a lot of time one of the things I love to do is eat out and go to restaurants and get to see chefs do really amazing things with food, especially in Chicago, which has some of the best restaurants in America. And I think, how cool would it be to own a place where people come, they have a great time, they celebrate each other, milestones, birthdays, retirements, maybe engagements, who knows, right? And they just enjoy life there. And yeah, it's hectic, but it just seems like something fun. And so when I think about cool things like that, or traveling the world on and going to places that I wouldn't be able to go to now but can go to in the future, those are dreams that I have that I'd love to work on and have the freedom to do in just a little while.
Awesome. Well, coming to the end of our time, is there anything else in the lesson or anything else in your own personal story that you want to bring up?
There is a point in the lesson about mindsets, and you mentioned it earlier about people's minds stopping them from where they want to go. It's really, our mind is really powerful and it can enable us to accomplish so many things. It can also inhibit us. The more people you talk to about money, about your goals and plans, the better it's going to be and the more comfortable you're going to be. Like, I found over the years taking this course and talking to the other students in the course and the facilitator, the instructor, talking to you, having that community group that I started, and then just talking to members of my family and friends about these topics really helped set my mind free on this and made me feel confident too. It also solidified my choices. And so talking to people, educating oneself, reading on the different books that are out there. This lesson talks about how many books there are on this topic. And there's an endless stream of podcasts and resources. Just, we have to keep learning every day, learning never stops, and asking questions and not being afraid to change course. That's the other thing. Our lives take different turns. Like I mentioned, I'm moving to a new city that I've never lived in a new state. And that's going to be different. But being open to that experience and figuring out how, with our money, how we can shape our lives in a way that we can live in joy and peace.
Yeah, I think one of the beliefs, the most self-limiting belief people have about money is, whatever their situation, that's the way it is. And what I love about your story is you don't believe that. Like, you believe in your own ability to learn and grow and change. And I feel like, it's super hard in capitalism, right? Like, and people have more ability to change than they think they can.
Yes, and creativity. Like, people will say, "Oh, I'm not creative." It's like, we're all creative. We all can do so many things. You don't have to be an artist or a musician to be creative. You can be creative in so many ways. Even how you design your life and how you choose the things you want to do with your life and activities. So I'm excited for the future. I really think people should take this course to get a firm understanding of the principles they need to have a financially free life and to give them the confidence they need to take the steps to change their lives, because we can all improve. We can all do better. And what better way to do it than with a committed group of people who want to learn just like you?
Last question, Barbara. What are you teaching your kid about personal finances? Because you talk about this intergenerational, right, wealth, but intergenerational wealth is not only about money, but it's about the habits and attitudes and knowledge. So what do you teach your kid about money?
Right now, I'm teaching my child about the value of money and what money can buy, because my child's thinking a lot about getting prizes or toys or games with the money, but I'm trying to explain that yes, that is true, but money can also help with other things, whether it's shelter or clothing and food, and not just games, not just toys, not just the fun stuff, but how important it is to save. And we have a checking account and for my child, but then we also let my child have some fun money, just money set aside. And we went to a museum recently and my daughter got what she wanted from there, but it was set aside for that purpose. So starting to teach the discipline, starting to teach that, yes, you can spend on some things, but money is very valuable and we got to find a way to use it for our many purposes. And she's learning. She's slowly getting it.
It's super interesting because this lesson is really about attitudes and behaviors, right? And there's so many people that take the course that, especially when they get to the miracle of compound interest lesson, they wish like, why didn't my parents tell me this? And either their parents didn't know about it, or their parents, I have no idea why their parents don't tell kids about like compound interest and saving. But our attitudes and behaviors come in very early. So I'm super gratified that you're teaching your daughter about all this.
Oh, yeah. She's going to learn way more about these topics than I did, and understand, too, that with education comes many opportunities. We also have to be mindful of the costs and just make smart decisions about education, which is a big value for us, but one that we want to be sensible about, especially when we're thinking about the impact it has on us down the road.
Well, maybe she'll be able to hit fire when she's like age 40.
That'd be great. I'd love that. We'll take trips together.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Barbara. Thanks for showing up today.
Thanks so much, Douglas. I really enjoyed being here.
And thank you, audience. You have been listening to the School of Financial Freedom podcast. Stay tuned for another episode. Thank you for tuning in to the School of Financial Freedom podcast, where we ask, what does it mean to live a meaningful inner and outer life? And how do our personal finances fit into that? We hope you enjoyed this episode and it helps you live with an increasing sense of empowerment, integrity, and agency in the world. For more information, resources, and to re-listen to this or any past episodes, visit our website at schoolofinancialfreedom.com. There you can find out when the next cohort of Financial Freedom 1, the online course is. If you've enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving us a review, as it helps more people find us and join our community of people interested in the intersection of money and personal and spiritual growth. I'm Douglas Soy, founder of the School of Financial Freedom. You can also find me on Substack, where you can subscribe to my popular newsletter, Money and Meaning. I also love hearing from readers and listeners, so write me at www.douglassoy.com. I'm grateful that you listened, and I hope that this episode has given you hope and insight into taking control of your finances to live the life you want.